So we have officially entered into a brand new year, which means a brand new year of Minecraft building, crafting, exploring redstone. So with it being a new year, I was kind of thinking it might be cool to actually go back to 2022 and even some of 2021 and look at my creative graveyard. That's right, guys. A graveyard, if you don't know, is basically a super flat creative test world that you practice building in. I was actually kind of surprised to realize that not many people do creative test world tours, and it makes me kind of sad because honestly, I would love to see inside the brain of some builders. I just think it'd be cool to see what their creative process is like and what they kind of think about, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what builds they completed, what builds totally failed and didn't end up working out, what they loved and what they didn't love, and why they made choices that they did. I just think that's kind of a cool concept. My shaders that I'm using are the complementary shaders, and I also have the settings changed to the disruptive build settings. So disruptive builds is another YouTuber, and they uploaded a settings video for their complementary shaders that I just really honestly loved. I thought it looked so clean and so cool. So I will link both of those down below, the shaders and the video with the settings. So we're going to be starting in the back corner, but first, before we do that, I want to give you guys a little overview, flyby of everything that we can expect. I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as possible, but sometimes I ramble, so we'll see. But the first place we are starting off with here is just a outline. Sometimes this is how my builds start, with a wool outline. I think I got this idea from BOO and Flip. I think they both are really, really good at using wool to kind of create outlines for builds, and I wanted to give that a try. Another thing that's really big in this world is block palettes. I really got into block palettes in the year of 2022 because I felt like I was just building out of oak and spruce all the time, and I really wanted to try to branch out, start using color in my builds, so I made this wall of block palettes. I got most, if not all, of these block palettes from Instagram, which is a great resource for not only Minecraft building, but also just for finding new block palettes and colors to use. It's also a really great way to figure out gradients. Gradients are incredible for roofs and also for detailing the bottom of builds, such as like stone parts. We're officially moving on to my first build here, and there's a lot to see, so I'm kind of going quick. Hope you guys don't mind. But this is where I really started experimenting with color, just color in my roofs, color in my builds. I planned block palettes right here to kind of get a feel for what I wanted to do with this build. And as you guys can see, this was a build I did in a single player series that I had. So this was supposed to be like a shopping center, row house, townhouse kind of feeling to it. But another thing to keep in mind too is in my world, there is a lot of facades, you'll notice. I didn't finish the back of a lot of my builds because I kind of a lot of these were built in survival or meant to be built in survival, such as this one. And a lot of times what I'll do is come into a creative world and just get a facade down, make sure that I like what I see, and then go into a survival world and finish out the build and just kind of use my noggin to finish it out, which I can oftentimes do. Once I get the front done and solidified, then I can kind of go through and just make up the rest as I go in survival. But it's key to have that front piece done so that I know that I actually like the build and I like the size and I like the structure and things like that. Here is a failed attempt at a build. I think that was supposed to be that one, but then never really ended up being anything. This was a nether bartering ship that I was going to make, and I never ended up doing anything with this. There were going to be bartering stations on top. I really wanted to use the warped wood because or the crimson wood because I've never really used that before. But yeah, this never ended up becoming anything. It just has been sitting here in my graveyard, just dying away. All right, kind of moving back here, we are moving into a fail zone. This is where a lot of my builds kind of started to not really work out. We have the fail corner, I guess. That's kind of dramatic and sad, but Anyways, okay, they're not complete fails. I shouldn't bash myself too much. But I just have some kind of random things here, like a portal. I really wanted to use amethyst for this portal and use the fog effect, and I just didn't really love the direction it was going, so I kind of bailed out. A little bit of randomness here, like decorating kind of a snowy, icy area. This was actually me trying to custom terraform. I was trying to figure out what natural terrain looked like. And so I actually looked at one of Scar's old videos in Scarland, and that is where I kind of replicated this. I did like a little build study on Scar, and I kind of did this. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. A failed build that I have no idea what that was going to be. This actually was the sewer enchanting setup that was from the Legacy SMP. And I built this deep down in a sewer near a spider dungeon. And this was the community XP. And this was the little enchanting setup for that. Is very detailed, using a million different blocks. But I actually think it looks really cool. This was hanging from the ceiling too, I believe, if I can remember correctly. All right, more rows of failed builds. We got a failed circle build here that never ended up being anything. We have my hot air balloons that were supposed to go in the end. I was going to build these as the top of the drop chute for my Enderman farm, but they were just way too small. And I could not get good detailing on them. I don't know, the block palette was just not working out for me. Couldn't figure it out. And yeah, it just never ended up becoming anything. So this next one was me just trying to figure out how to structure my builds and plan out my builds. This is actually in my old build style. In 2023, I'm reinventing myself a little bit with my building in Minecraft. And this is very much my old build style, although I love this detail right here. Why don't I do more of this? I actually really love that. I had seen, I think it was, I don't remember where it was, whether it was BOO or somewhere, I can't remember, but they plan their builds out in wool, and it was definitely a like a build tutorial video that I was following, and I just kind of liked this, like using the wool to structure out the size and shape of the build, and then kind of going in and detailing it after. I thought that was a really smart way to do it. It's actually not the way I do it anymore, but it's just interesting. And like I said, this is very much my old build style. I used to put my logs, my accent logs here and my interior walls all on the same surface. I actually don't do that anymore. I used to use stairs for the roof. I don't do that anymore. I also used to make my bases and my walls here only like 5 blocks tall, and now I make them like about 9 or 10 blocks, which you guys will hopefully see in my 2023 Creative World Graveyard a year from now when that comes out. Back here is a random small build that I did. I think I just wanted to try to see if I could use copper to make a nice looking trim build, and it ended up being super just strange. I don't know, it's very A-frame. This was me testing out the height of trees over there and then kind of making just a small tree platform. I like the way that this turned out, but I don't know if I'd actually ever use it in practical Minecraft for like a survival world or anything. I don't know. It's cute, but I don't think I ever did anything with it. This is my fountain from my survival series, my single player survival series. That was pretty short-lived. This was my little statue. It's supposed to have a villager head on top, some water, kind of look like a fountain type of situation. And I love the copper, love oxidized copper too, love that blue tealy color. It's so pretty. So I wanted to use it in a build, and I think it looks kind of cool, but it also ended up looking a little weird because it looks like the villager has really big ears. It kind of almost looks more like Grogu or something. Well, Grogu has way bigger ears, so maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, we're moving on. So the next build is just a failed frame. This happens quite often in my world. Sometimes I just have an idea. I think I got the idea for this off of Pinterest. I saw something that looks similar and I wanted to kind of replicate it, but I wasn't happy with how it was turning out and the flow of it and stuff. So it just ended up getting scrapped. This next build was another build that got scrapped. I never built this anywhere. Again, very much in my old build style. where I was using stairs for the roof. The trim block and the wall block were on the same plane. Very small, short, stout kind of builds. And this actually was going to be a bath. It's kind of like a bath. It's going to be a bathhouse that was also led into hot springs on the Imperial SMP when I was building in my snowy area. So I was kind of going for a very like dark log cabiny kind of feel, and it just didn't really, I don't know, something about the shape and I just didn't really love the direction it was going in. So I ended up not doing anything with it. But the funny thing about this build is oftentimes when I am building and testing things out, I'll watch YouTube videos. And I remember a lot of the times I can remember the exact YouTube video I was watching while I was building something, which is such a random tidbit, but I can remember what I was watching. I was watching a ghost hunting video while I was building this because I had a phase where I got really into ghost hunting YouTube channels. All right, the next is probably the most interesting section. We have the build palette row. So this is just a section of just build palettes and figuring out roof trims, roofs, what would look good as the middle of the walls and the bottom. And then I kind of lined up the build palette on the side and then did decorating with leaves and bushes and pathways, stuff like that. This is a really great way to kind of see the build palette all together. And we have like a desert palette, we have some overworld palettes, we also have palettes inspired by other YouTubers. So for example, this one was Gemini Tay. I saw her using honeycomb and pumpkins on one of her roofs. I thought it looked amazing. So I was like, that's something I want to keep a tab on and remember for later. There's actually another one over here that was from BOO. BOO built something out of like gray wool on the roof, and then he did white in the center and then kind of a dark oak trim, and it looked so good. And so I have that one here as well. This was an enchanting tower with a little enchanting setup on the bottom and an axolotl tank on top, which I think looks really cool. I think all the axolotls kind of jumped out. Oh wait, no, this wasn't axolotls. This was glow squid. That's right. I think this was supposed to be a glow squid tank. Yeah, this was a cool build. I really loved it. Again, very much in my old build style, but trying to incorporate color. This was the starter house from the same series. Very small. Again, sound like a broken record at this point, but very much in my old build style that has evolved since then. But I love it. I just kind of got the basic outline of the structure, did the facade, and once I was able to see the facade and realize that I liked it, I could just kind of figure out the rest later. Another build, this is the mausoleum, I believe from the same world. And down here, it's funny, we have a grave in the graveyard. But this is the pathway for the mausoleum, and I think that this turned out pretty cool. I love the color palette of it, something different that I wouldn't normally do. Again, this is another facade that I never did anything with the back because I usually just figure that out in survival. Again, most of these builds, guys, were either just built for fun or they were built for a survival series that I was doing on my channel. And I wanted to get a structure before going into survival because I didn't want to just go into it blindly building, because sometimes you'll spend hours building something and then like step back from it and realize you hate it. So I like going into creative mode first and like solidifying the fact that I like something, and then I can go back and like be like, okay, we'll build this in survival now, and then it'll become something, you know? But I always build it in creative first because it gives me a good taste of whether I actually like the build or not, and if I like the direction that the build is going. Sorry, I felt like I needed to explain that because, yeah, that's just why a lot of these are facades, is because I like to get the facade down, make sure I like it, and then go into survival and build it. Here's just a couple random builds that weren't really anything. This also was a build that wasn't anything. I say it wasn't anything, but it's actually pretty grand and very heavily detailed. Like, look at this detail. Holy cow, there are so many blocks and pieces within this. Kind of cool. Again, very much my old build style. But I think it looks really cool. I never ended up building this anywhere. No series, no survival world. This was purely just a random build that I did for creative mode, which I think is what makes this world kind of golden is you guys get to see the stuff that never made it onto my channel. So yeah, that's why I want to see other YouTubers' worlds because I want to see what didn't make it onto their channel. I think that would be so cool. But yeah, some other builds that didn't really make it into anything. I don't even know what that was. This was just terraforming for, I think I was doing this for Legacy SMP. I was trying to get a block palette down for paths and terraforming in a sandy area. This was my amethyst geo tree that was on Imperial SMP, which was home to my portal. I would have made this way more grand and way bigger nowadays because it's quite small. Like for it being a tree, it feels really, really tiny, but it was under a giant boulder, so I guess it couldn't really be that big. But yeah, I'm not very good at custom trees, and I think it definitely shows with the just the awkward shaping of this thing. I think it's a bit awkward. I don't love it, but it did end up making it into a video. All right, moving on back here. This was a failed block palette attempt. And then over here, this is a fun one. So on the Legacy SMP, I wanted to build a town hall because we were all living together and all building together in one area. And this was the first iteration of my town hall, and I hated it. Some of you guys might look at this and love it or think it looks cool, but I was not feeling this at all. So I kind of moved on, and this was another failed attempt. But this is what I eventually ended up coming up with. And this was the what made it onto the server. I thought it looked pretty cool. I remember Sausage helping me put this together. I think we went and like broke it all apart because it was supposed to look very dystopian, and it didn't look very dystopian here, but we like I built it and then we went and like tore it apart together. It was so much fun. But again, another facade with sort of a little bit of an outline of a structure. This was a Instagram build that I did, very heavily inspired by Instagram. Again, never made it onto anything. It didn't even make it onto Instagram, but there was a big trend of these kind of underground super, what are they called? Super bases? Ultimate survival base. That's what they're called. Was a big trend this year, and so I wanted to try it. But again, never ended up doing anything with it because I just felt like it looked so much like everybody else's, so I didn't want to post it anywhere. But I guess it's living here forever, so I might have just copied someone's structure on this one. I have no idea. I that style's not really my style, so I just didn't really do anything with it, I think. Moving on to here, this is the bulletin board from Legacy SMP. Nothing too crazy, just a cute little bulletin board. I built that here first before building it there. This was my wagon house on Legacy SMP Season 1, I believe. I remember building this in the, like, fantasy wooded area with everybody else, and it was such a cool area. People were building, like, mushroom bases, and it was a very fantasy vibe, so I wanted to go with this big wagon house that was being pulled by, like, a giant or something like that. Again, it is a facade, so I just built the facade and then kind of my brain took over after that once I got into the survival world. This is a mining area that I did, I think for my single player world. I used drip leaves, made it very overgrown. Then moving along to my Imperial SMP storage house. I love this. It was supposed to look like a log cabin. I really loved a lot of the style techniques I used for this. Like I love the little stairs here with the fence posts underneath or the gates underneath and the little planter boxes out front. I like how chunky this build is too. It's kind of like very thick and log cabin, very cozy, warm kind of feeling. We have the pearlescent moon inspired doors here as well, which I love. Pearl's such a great builder, and so I like to take inspiration from other builders sometimes when I can. And yeah, this was the interior. Lots of crates and chests and shulkers and all kinds of things were in here, but this was a fun one. This is one of the few that I actually built full out before going into survival and building it. The next one is my failed greenhouse tree farm. So I wanted to build a greenhouse and put a tree farm inside of it, but my It's very smart brain. Did not realize that the leaves would actually stick to all of the wood that the structure was made out of. So I actually ended up having to go through and changing everything to black stone. I had to change it to a stone texture so that it wouldn't get stuck. The leaves wouldn't get stuck because it was such a pain in the butt to actually harvest all of the trees in here. And then all the leaves were like stuck on the roof. It just looks so awkward and weird. Lots of medieval lamp designs right here. This is a cute little thing for Imperial SMP that I was going to build as well, but it never ended up making it into the world. It is such a cute little market stall, but it's kind of taken on a snowy theme. Well, that was the whole point of it, the idea of it at least. It has a big chimney. It was going to be to sell cakes. It was super cute. And again, never ended up doing anything with it, but it was supposed to seem like kind of a snowy cabiny take on a market stall. Now this build is really special. This build is my community center build from Imperial SMP as well. Another fleshed out build that I built most of it beforehand, and you guys can see the interior there is finished, so we'll go take a look in there. But this build is important to me because this was the build that was featured in Minecraft Live 2021 when me and my voice were featured in the pre-show of Minecraft Live, which was one of the best moments of my YouTube channel, was being recognized by Mojang, and like being in Minecraft Live was so cool. And this, in the clip of in the Minecraft Live, I'm walking in this build. So it's kind of cool that it gets to live in this world forever because I actually don't even have access to the old Imperial SMP server anymore. I don't have that world anymore since we stopped playing in it. It's cool that I built this build in creative first and it's in this world because I get to almost relive that kind of moment from the Minecraft Live. I could go back and watch the video, of course, but I get to actually walk in it, and I just think that that's such a weird, like, crazy thing to be able to do because I didn't build many of my other builds, especially full out with full interiors and everything. So it's just kind of a special, very, very special build to me. So I'm really glad that it gets to live on in this world forever. Couple more random things here. We have either an ice skating rink or a well. I'm not quite sure what this even was supposed to be, but it looks kind of cool, I guess. This was for my one block hardcore series that I ended up dying in pretty soon after starting it. But this was supposed to be my farm design for that, but I think I never ended up doing it. This is moving on to just some kind of terraforming, detailing, getting some ground and path worked out, and then also kind of how I would want to decorate the grass just to make it a little bit more interesting, adding some small trees and things like that. I actually think this tree is sick. This tree is so cute. It's like a little tiny baby tree, but I like it. All right, we are almost done, guys. We have one more line to go, and then we are done. We are in the home stretch. So this is a trolley cart that I made to go on top of my big bridge, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I never ended up building this either. I also just think it's way too small. I wish I could add more detail to it. So this was the mini mock-up version of my big bridge that I built on Imperial SMP, which to this day is one of my favorite thumbnails on my channel and one of my favorite projects that I ever worked on because it was one of the first projects I did where people replicated it. I've never really had people copy my builds or like copy my build style until I built this bridge, and I saw a couple people make a similar bridge that was inspired by me, and honestly it was like one of the best things ever. I just was like, wow, I actually built something that people resonate with, and I actually built something that like someone would want to recreate. Like I know a lot of my builds people do like them and they're like, oh, they look really good or they look really cool, but this was the first time that I've had people recreate a build of mine and like do their own take on it. And I thought that that was like the coolest thing ever. So it was actually inspired by Good Times with Scar. It is a big train, a wooden train bridge. If you look up on like Google Images, big wooden bridges or wooden train bridges, that's where I got the inspiration for the build. And it was actually inspired by a very old Good Times with Scar Hermitcraft episode where in his, I believe he was building in a Badlands, or not a Badlands, what is it called? Like a Mesa Badlands area. He built kind of a similar-ish wooden train bridge. And I just thought it was super cool looking. And so I wanted to build one of my own in my snowy area. So another thing I like to do in my creative test worlds is build studies. I think build studies are really important because it can be kind of cool to look at what other people do and get ideas from them and see what is successful for them and what parts of the build that you like that you could incorporate into your own builds that another creator possibly did. So this was a build study on Lobo's Garage pathways. I really like the way that he did pathways in his survival series. He has a very extensive, like awesome, like one of the best survival worlds I've ever seen in my life. He has one of the best ones. I cannot believe he built that. I'll link it down below. I'll link the playlist so you guys can start watching it and become a Lobo fan like me. But I love his build style a lot. And so I kind of wanted to do a very small build study on his build style. And if you guys would like a more in-depth tutorial on build studies later, I would love to do a video on them. So please let me know. I would love to do that. In fact, I might just do it just because I want to. But if you guys would like to see that, leave me a comment too. Another thing I like to do is build tiny redstone contraptions in this world. This was a El Mango 8 furnace array originally, but I've tried to turn it into a 4 furnace array. I actually don't think this works. I think the 8 furnace array is way better, so just stick with that one. The next build that pretty much failed a little bit was my cyberpunk inspiration. This was on the Legacy SMP. I was going to build a cyberpunk city pretty close to Flip's cyberpunk city actually, but I think I was way in over my head and I just did not even know what it meant to build a cyberpunk city. So I started trying to kind of get a block palette together and just building something. And to be honest with you guys, I was so overwhelmed and lost and I just didn't even know really what I was doing. I just remember being like, where do I even begin with this? Automatic wool farms. This is again just a reminder for myself so I don't have to look up a tutorial. I can just come into my creative world and just replicate this. This tiny little box here was testing out some cyberpunk lighting. I wanted to do a hidden lighting feature and this actually looks pretty good, but I needed a box so I could test out the darkness and stuff. All right, moving on to this little tiny build here, which I built in a single player episode. The original origin of this build was I was going to play on a world with a friend of mine. So if we actually go into the interior of this house, you'll see that there are 2 beds and two sets of armor. It's because I was going to build this in a world with one of my really good friends. We were going to have a private world together and we never ended up doing it. So this build just kind of ended up not going anywhere and nothing happened with it. So it kind of sat in this graveyard for a long time and I decided to resurrect it into my single player series and I ended up building this as my starter house for one of my single player series. I think it turned out pretty cool. I love the roof. Again, this is very, very much in my old build style. I don't build like this anymore. You guys will see in my upcoming videos that I very much do not build like this anymore, but I still think it's extremely cute and I like it. Back here is a nether build that I was going to do. I wanted to build a nether castle. I didn't end up doing anything with it. That's very much a theme. Take a sip of water every time I say, was that it didn't end up working out or this is not my build style anymore. Take a sip of water every time and you will be hydrated for the rest of your day. But yeah, this one just didn't end up working out. I didn't really like it. So this was my birthday cake from my birthday that I built in a survival world of mine. And I actually really love it. It's a chocolate cake with strawberry frosting and cherries on top. These candles are amazing. They look like actual little ribbed candles that you get at Target or whatever. And they originally had chains on top as the wicks, but I went through and changed them to actual candles because you can light them. But I have to say that looks pretty pathetic if I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, I think it's such a cute build. It's so random. It was actually inspired by Gold Robin, who is on Instagram. Gold Robin also has a YouTube channel, so I'll link them down below. I'm just going to link everyone I'm inspired by, I guess. Moving over here, this is just me working on pathways as well. Just trying to figure out different paths that look good, nether paths, darker paths, lighter paths, stone paths, sandstone paths. These back here were going to be my drop shoot ideas. I was just trying to come up with a color palette for a drop shoot for an Enderman farm. This was what it was going to end up looking like. If you can kind of see, that's where the Endermen drop down, and then you have your Enderman XP farm. The Endermen are kind of up here and they run to the center. But this was going to be just so grindy to do that I never ended up doing anything with it. There we go. Take another drink of water. And last but not least, we have one of my better builds in the world. This was a build from a reference image found on Pinterest. Again, very much in my old build style. And I just love it. I think it's super cute. I think these two builds right next to each other are probably two of my most completed builds in this world, aside from my cabin and my maybe my little enchanting tower here and this tower here. But this is one of the more completed ones, and I think it turned out really cute. Again, just trying to step out of my comfort zone with building and texturing, and just trying to add more detail to my builds. I also did interior on this, and this actually never ended up going anywhere, but I really like it. Like, even though I didn't post it on my channel or my Instagram or anything like that, I still just kind of love coming into my creative world and seeing what I made in the past. But you guys, that is gonna have to do it for my world tour of my creative graveyard. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really appreciate you watching through this video. I really wanted to give you guys a peek into what the creative process looks like as a content creator. I am by no means the most consistent or just, you know, the smartest content creator, honestly. But I wanted to show you guys as a builder what it kind of looks like to have a building creative test world, the things that I like to focus on, the way that I like to do builds. As you can see, there are a lot of trends here. There's a lot of builds that just didn't end up becoming anything. There are builds that I built strictly for fun because I wanted to. I built a lot of these builds for a survival world, and a lot of them were facades, and I would just build the facade and then kind of figure out the back once I got into survival. Build palettes and pathing is also another thing in this world that is really important, and stuff that I wanted to figure out. Having build palettes is just a really big asset in your Minecraft world. So I hope you guys got some ideas from this, and I hope you guys enjoyed seeing a look inside my brain as a Minecraft builder. So I hope it was kind of cool to get to see that. And I challenge any other Minecraft YouTubers out there, please, I'm begging you, show me your world. I want to see what your creative test world looks like, because I just think that they're so cool. I would love to hear the backstories behind your builds. I would love to hear why you built certain things. I would love to hear what you like and what you don't like. I would love to hear what worked and what didn't work, because I think as builders that just helps us. It helps us all learn. So I hope you guys got some tips and tricks and learned maybe a thing or two from this. If not, I hope it was just at least a little bit entertaining. Again, thank you to all my patrons and members for being awesome. Thank you to all you viewers who watched this video. And 2023 is going to be a great year. So I hope to catch you guys on my channel. Hit the subscribe button so you can see all of my new builds, including my new build style, because I talked about it so much in this video. I'm actually really hyped about it. So I hope to see you guys more on my channel. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you in the next one. Bye guys. Also, I hope you have a really good 2023.